You ever get that feeling, that need to just step back from all the noise? Today, we're diving into a really profound journey of personal awakening, inspired by the ideas of Alan Watts. It's all about what happens when a person decides to stop performing and just starts being. Okay, this one sentence, it's everything. It sets the whole stage for what we're talking about. The key word here is stopped. See, it's not some big aggressive move like cutting people off. It's a quiet internal shift. He just drops the act, and the distance, well, that just naturally follows. So, this awakening, it starts out small. It's like this subtle feeling of just drifting away from the crowd. And it's not coming from a place of arrogance, not at all. It's just that the old ways of connecting, the old social frequencies, they just don't make sense anymore. He starts to actually listen to what people are talking about day to day. And he notices this pattern, almost like a script, that just keeps repeating. People are either talking up their status, gossiping about other people, or complaining. And once you really see that loop, it becomes almost impossible to jump in and pretend to care.
Once he sees that conversational loop, it leads to this much deeper realization about how our social world actually works. He starts looking under the hood of our daily interactions, and he sees the whole thing as, well, it's a performance.
So that makes him ask a really fundamental question. If so much of what we say is just noise, what's the actual glue holding all these relationships together? He starts looking past the smiles and the small talk, trying to find the real foundation.
And the answer he comes to, it's pretty startling. He realizes that so many of our connections aren't really built on deep truth or understanding. They're built on habit, on the comfort of what's familiar. They're built on these unspoken agreements not to challenge each other's illusions. And yeah, even just bonding over a shared complaint.
And then he sees it everywhere. This huge amount of energy people spend just trying to be liked, just to get that nod of approval or have someone echo their opinion back to them. And once he realizes he doesn't need that for himself anymore, he sees with crystal clarity how much our interactions depend on that constant, low-level exchange of validation.
Now, it's really important to get this next part. This whole process of pulling away, it's not some sad story about being lonely. It's about discovering a brand new and honestly a much more stable way of being. It's a total rebrand of what it means to be by yourself.
And this right here, this shows the huge shift in his perspective. Society usually tells us that being alone is a problem to be solved, right? It's an emptiness that you need to fill. But for him, that exact same space is experienced as peace. It's not a lack of something, it's the presence of something, clarity, strength, and his own true self.
And this is the big breakthrough moment. Think about how most people use constant noise, TV, social media, just endless chatter to avoid being alone with their own head. He makes the choice to just sit in that silence. And what he finds there isn't scary or empty. It's just a deep, profound sense of calm.
But, of course, when you make a change this big on the inside, it's gonna have consequences on the outside. You can't just stop playing a game that everyone else is still in the middle of without disrupting the entire board.
I mean, just think about all the little things we do in conversation without even realizing it. We nod along when we don't really agree. We offer some empty, comforting phrase just to smooth things over. Well, he stops doing that. Not to be mean, but because it feels fake. And for other people, that lack of the usual social feedback is deeply unsettling.
So what's the result? Confusion, labels. People just don't know what to make of his new stillness. But when they say things like this, what they're really saying is, he doesn't reflect my own anxieties and my own values back to me anymore, and that makes me uncomfortable. His quiet presence basically exposes their performance.
So this whole process of letting old connections fall away, it doesn't just leave a big empty hole. Instead, it's like clearing the ground so that something way more authentic can finally grow. It leads to a totally new definition of what real connection is.
This new kind of friendship isn't needy. It's not about two people leaning on each other to feel complete. It's about two whole individuals who see the same truth in one another, and they just choose to walk alongside each other for a while, with no demands, no expectations.
This pretty much becomes his new rule for life. The feeling of pretending is now way more uncomfortable than the feeling of being alone. He gets that a real connection is rare, and he's totally willing to wait for it instead of filling the silence with empty words.
So, this commitment to being real, it brings him to the final stage of the journey.
After all the shedding, the misunderstandings, and the redefining, he lands in a new, stable place. The kind of peace that only comes from living your truth.
That constant search is just over. He doesn't need other people to understand him anymore. He doesn't feel like he has to explain himself. And he definitely doesn't need a round of applause. His own internal compass is his only guide now, and because of that, all the external noise just kind of fades away. And in the end, you see that this isn't a story about a failure to connect. It's actually the ultimate success story of connecting with himself. His solitude isn't a sign that the world rejected him. It's a sign of his own integrity, his own wholeness. And this whole journey leaves us with one last, really powerful question to ask ourselves. It shows that being authentic, it has a price. In a world that so often rewards putting on a show and just fitting in, what's the cost of your truth?